Because if you're mildly right, then you are literal Hitler. If you are hard left, then, Mao and Stalin just got it wrong. There is no equivalency. It doesn't matter. You can talk about the numbers, the numbers of people who were killed by the far left versus the number of people that were killed by Hitler. And they go, oh, you're just a Hitler apologist. No, I'm not. What I'm trying to do is drag you back to reality and say that the thing which you espouse, that thing called socialism, extreme form of socialism, which has been tried many, many times, and on each occasion, it ends in the mass slaughter of individuals.
Good? We are good. Right, Harry, the rogue policeman. How are you, man?
No, I'm very well, mate. Thank you very much thanks for having me.
You're the wrong guy.
I am the wrong guy. Yeah, that's an interesting one. That tattoo on my arm there, because it was Toby Young who wrote a headline about me and said that he took it from a story told by Tarantino. Actually, that when Tarantino one time he was asked, "When you were a young man, what did you want to be?" And he said, "Well, I grew up, and seeing all these people being attacked by the bigger people, and they always get sorted out by the wrong guy, and I wanted to be the wrong guy." And Toby Young decided that I, in fact, was the wrong guy. So, when you've had a headline like that, it feels appropriate to stick it on my arm.
I think you and I are going to get on all right. I've got a few things I'm going to start telling you about, but I think you're going to appreciate the world I'm in right now. But listen, just let's go back a step, just for people listening who might not know you, haven't done the research out of this interview. Can you just give a bit of a background how you came to annoy the authorities?
I came to the attention of the authorities back in 2019. My wife, who's here with me today, actually, in 2018, she'd sort of awoken me up to the fact that there was this trans rights movement where trans women, trannies have always been around, haven't they? We kind of just the sort of half interesting, oh look, there's a tranny, but that was about it. Suddenly we realised that this was actually a whole movement where it wasn't enough that there were blokes wandering around who, pretended to be women, dressed as women, but there was this movement that said that trans women are women, literally are women, and they were wanting to get into women's spaces and women's sports and women's toilets and get undressed in front of women. And I'm not a woman, you may have noticed, but that struck me as philosophically bonkers. And also quite dangerous. Now, I'm the husband of a wife. I'm the father of daughters, and so I'm interested in their welfare. And this just struck me as very, very odd and potentially dangerous. And it was Jules, my wife, who said to me that unless men start speaking up about it, people won't listen. So, Julie, I got on my X account, my Twitter account as it was, and I had very few followers, certainly under 1,000, maybe 800 or 900. And I started tweeting about trans issues in amongst tweeting about other things like football and blah, 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 the usual stuff.
Provocative or just opinion?
Just opinion, really. I mean, I've always believed in punching up, not down. I was making simply, a few sarcastic comments, etc. And then it was in January 2019 where a police officer turned up at my place of work. Now, I used to be a police officer a long time ago, but for the last sort of 25 years, 30 years or so, I was the owner and director of a plant and machinery company that unloaded coal on Immingham Dock, apart from other things. So this police officer turned up at my office. I wasn't in, but my MD rang me and said, "H, there's a copper here, a fella called PC Gull." I said, right, okay, let me speak to him. He said, oh, he's gone, but he's left me his number. I said, okay. So I rang him and I had no idea what this was going to be about. I hadn't got a clue because, I worked in heavy industry. I worked in a very dangerous environment. There's any number of things that could have happened.
You didn't think it was about Twitter?
No, I didn't think it was about Twitter in the slightest. I thought one of our lads had, gone down Immingham High Street in a 24-ton digger or something like that. I didn't know what he'd done, but the last thing I thought it would be about Twitter. So imagine my surprise when PC Gull introduced himself as a community liaison officer from my old force, Humberside Police. And his first question was, "Are you Harry the Owl on Twitter?" And I went, "Wow, yeah, I am actually. Why? What's the problem?" He said, "Well, we've had a complaint about your Twitter account." I said, "Right, okay, what is it that I've said?" He said, "Well, there's somebody who's complained and said that your place of work, they think that it's dangerous for trans people." At which point, I cracked up laughing because Immingham Dock is the backside boil of the earth. We barely have any gay people, let alone trans people. It's sort of it's Neanderthal. It's that backward. People point when an aeroplane flies over. It's not the sort of place that you'd go to. It's not Compton Street.
Yes.
You know what I mean? It's just not that sort of place. So the notion that I would have trans people in my workplace was absolutely bonkers. I mean, these are hard-nosed, hard-assed, ugly as fuck plant and machinery operatives, black as night from all the coal and gnarly hands. It's just like, no, there ain't any trans people in my workplace. And at the time, I was employing around about 100 people. And I pointed this out to PC Gull, and he said, "Well, nevertheless, somebody feels that your place is unsafe for trans people." I said, "Well, let's just unpack that a little bit." I said, "Because I've got all these people working for me." I said, "Not one time has anybody challenged me on the basis of a breach of the Equality Act, nor on any of the acts which preceded the Equality Act. So I would say that as an employer, I'm pretty sound." But this had no sway over PC Gull, who was a man on a mission. He said, "Nevertheless, we think that it's this person is concerned." I said, "Right." I said, "Well, is anything that I said criminal?" And he said, "Oh, no, nothing that you said was criminal." I said, "Right then. So what was the thing that I said that was nearest to being criminal, that had its toes right up against the line of criminality? If I'd gone that little bit further, it would have been criminal." And he said, "There was a limerick." And I thought, well, I've not done a limerick. He said, I told him this. He says, "Yes, but you retweeted it." I said, "Oh, oh, right, okie dokie." And the limerick, it wasn't even a limerick. It may be identified as limerick, but it wasn't a limerick. It was a piece of feminist doggerel verse, pretty shitty, but, it was, it said, "Your breasts are made of silicon, your vagina goes nowhere, and we can tell the difference even when you're not there. Your hormones are synthetic. Now let's just cross this bridge. What you have, you stupid man, is male privilege." Boom. That was it. Okay, so he explained to me that whilst this limerick was not mine, but I promoted it, and that without necessary intervention from PC Gull and Humberside Police, that this was the first step on the road to, now you need to brace yourself for this, because this is what they said, not me.
Are we going in pre-crime here?
Yeah, but that without necessary intervention, not only would I commit a crime if left unchecked, but that crime would lead to negative discrimination, name calling, violent attacks, murder, and ultimately, if left unchecked, would lead to genocide. This is what the police not only told me, but they also argued this in court the following year.
You are a dangerous man.
I am a very, very dangerous man, my friend. A very dangerous man indeed. And that's what they argued, that left unchecked, non-crime hate will grow and mature into hate crime. This is it. And this is where we came across this notion of a non-crime hate incident. A non-crime hate incident is any incident perceived by anybody, the victim or anybody else, as being motivated by hate. So this is crazy. Nobody had ever heard of these non-crime hate incidents before.
Hold on, but they're saying you're motivated by hate.
Yeah.
And from everything you've told me, your motivation was, as a husband and a father to daughters, your motivation is safety and fairness.
Yeah, absolutely. But here's the thing. The guidance that the police were using, issued by the College of Policing in 2014, it tackled this problem of there being no evidence, and it handily said in the guidance that the police were forced to follow that no evidence of hate was necessary. That's what it said. And it gets worse. It says that any attempt to pass the evidence through a lens of rationality and reasonableness was itself a secondary case of hate. That by saying I'm not sure whether this claim is reasonable. Well, you just committed your hate crime as well. So you doubled up on the hate by applying a lens of reasonableness to the original complaint. So they've got you in this eternal cycle of that I can't break out of. It's hate because somebody perceived it as hate, and if you question it, that is a further example of hate.
Are we committing a crime by discussing it?
No. Now we will get onto that. We will get onto that, my friend. We'll get onto that. But what I think brought me, apart from the actual incident itself, it was the response of PC Gull when I challenged him, because I said, look, have I committed a crime? And he said, no. And I said, but you're a police officer. And he said, yeah. And I said, why are you here then? He said, I need to check your thinking. And they were his actual words.
No,
yes, I need to check your thinking. And so I went, I was like,
get out.
Okay, well, I could, that's one of the options I could have done, was just have gone fuck off and left it at that. But I was having too much fun by this point, because I realised I was dealing with a new type of police officer that I'd never come across before, basically a woke idiot. So I thought, I've got to explore this, I've got to explore this. I said, let me get this straight. You're a police officer, yeah. You're here to check my thinking, yeah. I said, does that not worry you? He said, no. I said, have you heard of 1984? He said, no. I said, well, 1984. I said, I'll tell you this.
Bought him a copy.
Yeah, 1984. It was a dystopian novel, not a police how-to manual. But, of course, the reference just entirely passed him by. But it gets worse. It wasn't just this one limerick that I'd retweeted. I'd said other things which were early indicators of genocide. If you like, it was my early efforts of Mein Kampf, which was going to show that I was left unchecked. I would be setting up death camps for trans people. And one of the things that I did was I sarcastically tweeted, and this was mine, I was assigned mammal at birth, but I identify as fish. Don't misspecies me, fuckers. And this was viewed as being absolutely prima facie evidence of hate and future genocide. I'd also made the comment that Sheffield women know the difference between lads and lasses. I'd said very benign things like that. There was no suggestion that I'd gone at anybody. I hadn't attacked anybody. I'd not targeted anybody. I'd not picked on an individual and gone at them, bang, 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 bang. I'd not done any of that. I'd simply put out to my very few followers these fairly benign, banal statements of actual common sense, in actual fact.
And a bit of satire.
A little bit of satire.
Which is protected under the European Convention of Human Rights.
Well, this was the thing. So I discovered that not only was I having the annoyance of a police visit, but PC Gull let me know that this would be recorded as a non-crime hate incident. I'd never heard of these. Very few people had heard of these. And I said, well, that's utterly ridiculous. I'm not prepared to have my name on some database of hate because some dickhead from God knows where has decided that I'm a hater. And he said, well, unfortunately, the national guidance says that we have to. That's it. So we did a little bit of research. It got even worse. It got even worse because we discovered that not only is this recorded as a non-crime hate incident, that it stays on your record for 6 years. There is no possibility of an appeal, and that it is disclosable on an enhanced DBS check.
They're putting you on a list. They're creating lists.
Yeah, creating a list, and which they will give to a employer if you're looking for promotion, or a potential employer if you're looking for work. This is directly out of the Stasi manual, straight out of the Stasi manual.
But you know what, Harry? There'll come a time when we win, where actually this will be a credit. But like, I hope he's on that list because I want to employ him.
Exactly, because it shows that you can actually think that you've not sold out and you're not a moron. That's exactly it. So we demanded that homicide police remove this from the list. We argued that this was a breach of my Article 10 European Convention of Human Rights right to express my opinion without interference from the state in this instance being the police. Now, Article 10 is a qualified right. Mm-hmm. It's not an absolute right. It's not like the First Amendment in the United States. But the state has to show that their intervention was proportionate and necessary and had a legitimate end in mind. And we said, you can't do that. You cannot do that. This was not proportionate. There is no, it isn't necessary, and there cannot possibly be any legitimate end in mind. What this is an exercise in the chilling effect. This is an exercise in the state trying to shut us down by scaring us into a form of silence and compliance, and we're not going to do that. So the remedy here was to go to a judicial review, which is at the High Court. It's massive, absolutely massive. So we named two defendants. We named the Chief Constable of Humberside because it was his force which initially sent PC Gull after me and recorded the non-crime hate incident. His defence was that he was following the national guidance as set by the College of Policing, so we named them as the defendant as well. So we took them both to the High Court. What was interesting at the High Court was that the judge, Mr. Justice Knowles, had no problem at all seeing how entirely wrong Humberside police had been.
The humble bee, a keystone species crucial to the survival of Earth's inhabitants. Here's how things would look if bees vanished. And here's how they'd look if humans vanished. But imagine if instead we became a keystone species by doing things the right way, by taking responsibility for our actions and becoming the solution. Iron mines the world's most responsible currency the right way. Because the future depends on it.
I know Mr. Justice Knowles.
Do you?
Yeah, I had a 5-year libel lawsuit, which I'm out tonight celebrating with my lawyers because we won.
Good lad.
I'll tell you about that in a bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
anyway,
so I know Justice Knowles.
So Mr. Justice Knowles, in his summing up, he likened the actions of Humberside police to the Stasi, the Czech, and the Gestapo, which is not a recommendation, really.
It's not a compliment.
It's not a compliment. That is the three worst possible police forces in recent European history. He begins his judgment, which runs to about 70 or 80 paragraphs. He quotes George Orwell. He quotes from On Liberty. He's almost reinvented himself as a Supreme Court judge in the state. In the States, you can see how angry he is about what's happened, and he absolutely slaps down Humberside police. But what's odd, he loses his nerve when it comes to the College of Policing, and he said that, and this is where it gets bizarre, even though following the guidance is unlawful and turns you into a Nazi, the guidance itself, which instructs you what to do, is legal. That is lawful. We said that can't possibly be right because there was no sense that the College of Policing was saying, "Oh, you Humberside, you went too far." There was no sense of you didn't follow the guidance. If you'd only followed the guidance, you wouldn't have got yourself in this mess. They were like they were absolutely like that. They were together. You couldn't put a fag paper between them. So very, very bizarre that Mr. Justice Knowles would say that the guidance is lawful, but following it to the letter is unlawful. So we thought this is definitely the basis for a challenge. So we challenged and went to the Court of Appeal 18 months later, and it was at the Court of Appeal that we finally won, and the national guidance was struck down. Well, I say it was struck down. It was struck down in theory. Unfortunately, police officers and chief constables don't seem to have got the memo telling them that their actions were and continue to be unlawful, because since then, since 2021, they have continued to record non-crime hate incidents at a shocking rate of knots, round about 60 to 65 per week since my ruling. They've continued to do this with great abandon. My co-founder of Fair Cop, the family law barrister Sarah Fillamore, she posted on Twitter, just sarcastic, and I don't know the context, but she said, "My cat's a Methodist," this was reported as a non-crime hate incident.
What?
Because somebody said that it suggests that Methodists wander around people's gardens pissing on the roses like a cat would. So this was recorded as a non-crime hate incident. And this is after my ruling. This is after I've won at the High Court, after the guidance has been struck down by the Court of Appeal. So we're now in a situation where we have absolutely rogue chief constables who are determined, for whatever reason, to continue inflicting members of the public who display wrongthink, according to them, because it continues to serve as a chilling effect. It's like a massive dose of herpes. You think it's gone, and it just comes back with and that's that. It's absolutely terrible. So this is why I've not sort of sat back after my victory and rested on my laurels and retired and just watched Netflix all day long, because the chief constables haven't yet got the memo. People are still getting into bother. People still need Harry Miller to turn up on their doorstep and defend them from errant police officers and the state. And I honestly don't know when it's going to end.
Look, I think I might have a few years on you, but I think we probably enjoyed the 90s about as much as each other. Maybe you're a few years older than me, but do you ever think right now that the world has gone absolutely fucking bonkers?
Yeah, it's completely bonkers. Absolutely bonkers.
Because you know what, Harry, I know there are things politically I disagree with people. I'm conservative. I disagree with them. And we can have a debate over the size of the state and what the state should do. But this woke stuff is bonkers.
It's not even left-wing. You can't even describe it as left or right-wing, because let's face it, if you're a left-winger, if you are a hard old-core Labour person or socialist,
Galloway,
or what have you, then what you're dealing with all the time is the inequity of reality.
Yes.
You know, you have men who lord it over women. You have the rich who lord it over the poor. You have nations who lord it over lesser nations. You're dealing all the time with hard reality, which is interesting because whilst the socialists have gone completely bonkers and Labour have gone bonkers, the Communist Party has stayed absolutely true to its grasp of reality. Now, you and I would disagree fundamentally with the Communist Party, of course, but at least they're looking at it through a lens of reality and not through a woke lens. You know, they know that you cannot identify out of an oppressed position. You cannot identify out of being poor. You can't identify out of being born in a shitty, third world nation. Identity politics is absolute bollocks. Well, they know it and we know it.
This is a problem with politics now, Harry. I stopped voting for the Conservative Party as a Conservative because they are part of the same bollocks. This kind of woke stuff has bled through mainstream politics, left or right. I've had Galloway sat there. I've had William Clouston from the SDP. I've had Rupert Lowe, formerly Reform Party, and actually, those guys agree on a lot. They just disagree on economics and equity. But they actually agree on a lot because they're not trapped in this new weird world that has been forced upon us. That's totally failed. But I'm just here thinking everything's bonkers. It's absolute. And by the way, I have a girlfriend. I have a daughter as well.
Yeah.
I also own a women's football team. You can imagine what that's like. and they're a semi-professional team. So I'm aware of all of this.
Yeah. And I don't know how you can, if you're upset with the world and, whether you're left wing, right wing or what have you, if you've got an honest interest in making the world a better place, you might come at it from an entirely different perspective, but you're only going to make it better by dealing in harsh reality. And that's it. There's an old Chinese proverb that says the first fundamental of wisdom is to call a thing by its proper name. And that's it. Until you call a thing by its proper name, you can't solve it. And this is right the way, particularly in London. If you insist on calling knife crime something other than black young men knife crime, you're not going to solve it unless you acknowledge that it's young black men knifing to death other young black men. You're not going to solve that problem because you've disregarded the fundamental ancient wisdom that you have to define a thing before you can solve it. It's the same with this nonsense around Islamophobia, and I've not watched the adolescent or whatever it was called thing on Netflix.
Just watched it.
Yeah. And Stephen Graham's a great actor. I'm sure it's a brilliant piece. But I'm sorry, they have switched the identity of the protagonist in that.
Is that known or is that suspected?
Well, whether they did it deliberately or not, when the writer comes out and says he didn't do that, that's fine. I'm sure you didn't mean to do it, but your woke mindset has done that because you dare not write something that actually identifies the problem. Look at what happened with Rudy Cabana. For ages and ages and ages, we were sold this lie that this was a young mental Aled Jones from the valleys of Wales who committed the atrocities in Southport. You knew that wasn't the case. I knew that wasn't the case. But any of us who suggested that we suspect that this might be either a new immigrant or an illegal immigrant or a first generation, a second generation immigrant from somewhere like maybe, I don't know, Rwanda. If we suggest that, we would instantly criminalise because speculation, particularly with the online safety bill.
Happened with Bernie. Do you know Bernie? But I always strong say
yes.
She was arrested for tweeting, if this is a Muslim, something like it's going to go off or something like that.
Absolutely. I know, but yeah. And she was right. The thing is, she was absolutely right. There are two problems there. One, the first problem is, why is speculation wrong? Keir Starmer has no problem in speculating and seeing the far right in everything. If something goes wrong, it's the far right's fault. He has no problem at all in speculating about that. But the second we speculate about something, then, we better be right. Otherwise, we're going to be done on the Online Safety Act for spreading misinformation. And even if it turns out that we are right all along, as Bernie was, too late. It's too late because very often the process is the punishment. The fact that you've come under police scrutiny, that your employer knows about it, your family knows about it, your friends know about it, you've been vilified in the press. It almost doesn't matter that months and months and months down the road, you're vindicated. The process has become the punishment, and that's what worries me.
So on adolescence, I saw the claims online and on Twitter before I'd actually watched it that they switched out, and there is a slight. I'm always trying to be careful because as much as there's a woke crowd, there's an anti-woke crowd who will quickly jump on something. I don't think adolescence is about a stabbing. It's about there is a stabbing in it. I don't think that's the story they're trying to tell.
No.
At all, actually. And I think, and having watched it, and Connor, you might have an opinion, I think they're trying to tell a different story because if it had been a gang member, a gang fight, something along those lines where it had led to somebody being stabbed and they cast a white character when it's predominantly maybe black lads who are in gangs, I would understand the argument. I think this isn't a story of stabbing. I think this is a story of the pressures of adolescence, and actually probably the pressures of adolescence for young white boys. And I think
boys in general, it's about masculinity.
Yeah, it's about masculinity, but it's kind of the Andrew Tate world. I think that's what it's trying to tell us, that story. And I think that's my read of watching it. That's the bigger story than the crime. And I don't want to give something away, but the ending isn't what I thought it would be.
Yeah.
What they covered at the ending is mainly impacts, not impact on him. And you see the story of everybody else. So I didn't, after watching that, if somebody said to you they swapped a black boy for a white boy, would you buy that?
Nah.
No, I wouldn't buy that.
No,
what was that you just brought up? Sorry, Connor just brought something up because the response.
So co-creator of Adolescence responded to it.
There's no part of this that's based on a true story. We're not making a point about race. We're just making a point, about masculinity. We're trying to get inside the problem. We're not saying one thing. So I think that's a misstep. But the problem
I would believe every word of that.
Yeah,
absolutely. The problem is, well, again, twofold. One, the government have latched upon it as a reason to do a crackdown on basically a white working class crackdown again, when that is not the major problem. And secondly, where are the programs which actually address the issue that you and I have. Where are the grooming gang programs? Where are the programs about the black on black stabbings? Where are the programs about the genuine threat from radical Islam? Where are those programs? Those programs don't get made in the same way.
Well, they do. But it's mainly driven by independent people. So we've got an interview coming out on Friday.
Today.
Oh, is it today with Raja?
Yeah.
What's his surname? Coming out today. He's the guy who was up in Oldham doing a lot of the investigations.
Yeah.
It's these conversations. It's documentaries that go straight to YouTube. Unfortunately, I think there needs to come to an acceptance that the mainstream media is, if there's a big circle of issues, they're going to go right to the centre and just stay safe because they're scared.
If they did do that, that would be fine. But I don't think they do that because there is a sin of omission as well as a sin of an active sin.
Yeah.
And I think they are sinful in their constant, repeated, year in, year out, a mission of doing good quality mass scene dramas that address the genuine issues that do that. I mean, let's just we're in London. I love London. I love the theatre in London. Now, down I think it's the Princess of Wales Theatre, I think. That's been running since I think 2012. The Book of Mormon.
Love it.
Absolutely fantastic. Seen it 2 or 3 times.
Yeah, same. Took my dad after my mum died because he needed cheering up.
Absolutely, he's absolutely brilliant.
Phenomenal.
You know, now could you imagine a similar musical called The Book of Islam?
Well, there would probably be attacks.
Well, it wouldn't. It wouldn't get to the stage because the people involved would be arrested. The actors would be arrested or more likely stabbed and killed. Without a shadow of a doubt, there'd be a fatwa on the lead roles and upon the writers of South Park. There would be demonstrations across the world about it. But it's absolutely fair game to go at a branch of Christianity. Mormonism is a branch of I mean, it's a bit weird, but it's in the broad scope of Christian. Isn't it? And it's absolutely fine. You know, we can sing about how the cure to AIDS is shagging a frog. Yeah. You can sing about fucking God in the eye. No problem at all. You can have the prophets dancing in hell with Adolf Hitler and Jeffrey Dahmer and all that sort of stuff. You can't have that. You cannot have a similar thing that addresses Islam. And with the new Islamophobia definition, it's going to get even worse. It's going to get even harder to do that. Now, you know, and I know, the reason that there isn't a book of Islam is because we value our lives more than we value having a good laugh at a musical. Well, we are genuinely afraid for the actors, the writers, and the audience, and anybody involved, that they would be subject to a fatwa. They would be subject to a terrorist attack.
We all saw what happened with Charlie Hebdo. We
saw what happened with Charlie Hebdo.
We murdered everybody.
Yeah, we did. And let's face it, it's now what? Is it 4 years since a teacher in Batley went into hiding? Why? Because he'd shown a picture of the Prophet Muhammad, a cartoon of Prophet Muhammad in a religious studies class. And since then he's been in hiding. Now that is absolutely ridiculous. If it wasn't the Muslims who were offended, had it been some I don't know, had it been a Muslim who'd been threatened by the far right, I guarantee that teacher would have been given an escort to school with snipers on the roof every day. Because the position would be, we are not giving in to the right wing. We will take you to and from that school. We will build a new school if necessary.
Well, there's multiple issues here, Harry, because, I mean, firstly, it's a clash of cultures.
Yeah.
I believe in free speech.
Yeah.
And that means you have the right to offend people at times.
Correct.
And I regularly offend people.
Really?
I do. I personally wouldn't insult any religion because I don't need to. This doesn't serve a purpose for me, and I don't know. I just think it's I don't want to provoke that kind of argument. I provoke in different ways. But I defend the right to free speech. But we have a clash of cultures here where we do have a belief that we should have a fundamental right to free speech here. And then in the Islam world, they have their cultural belief that you should not, show pictures, or you can't actually show a picture of the Prophet Muhammad, can you? That's
well, again, it's only certain branches of Islam, it's not all branches.
But these are cultural clashes.
Yeah.
We view it from a position of free speech, and they view it from a position of what their religious doctrine says they could do. That's a clash of cultures. But we as a nation should defend the right to free speech because that's who we are. But the bigger issue here is that there is a protection of that vote, because we know there's a strong part of that vote,
exactly,
which votes for the Labour Party. So I know what it's about. You know what it's about.
Yeah, it's a form of gerrymandering. That's what it is.
That's all it is.
That's what it is. But it's wrong. We're selling our soul for a packet of beans. This is a problem. And as in with Jack of the Beanstalk, you keep doing that, eventually the giant's going to come down the beanstalk and kill you. He ain't going to be bothered. That's what's going to happen. We are sowing the seeds of our own destruction. Now, I'm absolutely all for freedom of movement, not unrestricted freedom of movement, and freedom of religion. And I think it's great that we have a diverse mix of religions in this country. But let's not forget that this is Britain. Our head of state is supposedly the head of the Christian church. Culturally, we are a Christian country. So whilst we are very tolerant of your other religion, we welcome you. You can build a mosque. You can have your thing. The second that you start encroaching upon our freedoms, and the second you start making it not about culture but about rights, and once you start trying to limit what we do, then we have a real problem with this. I mean, I'm the whole move towards halal meat, for instance, in fast food chains and supermarkets and restaurants. That absolutely disgusts me. Look, if you want to have halal meat, go to a halal butcher. I don't like it. I'd rather they didn't kill animals in that way. But until it's the law that you can't, then, crack on. But don't expect everybody else to accommodate you at all.
Is there an expectation to accommodate, or is that actually serving a market need because there's a significant potential market there for the people who are serving it?
Well, that is definitely a possibility. Yeah. It might well be that. I think it's more likely that it's, when you think about how many halal eaters there are in this country, it's a tiny proportion.
I don't know.
We've only got what is it, 2 or 3%, I think it is, of Muslims in this country still. How
many vegans do we have? We serve them.
Yeah, exactly.
It could just be a market.
It could be, but I don't think it is. I think that what it is, it's bowing to some form of pressure. And the reason I say that is because how many trans people are there in the country? Very, 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 very few. Very few. And yet every policy in the UK, every HR policy in the UK will have something that addresses the plights and the concerns and the sensitivities of this tiny, tiny group of very, very noisy activists. And I think that's more likely to be the case than it being properly market driven. The old phrase, go woke, go broke. I think the market will fix this because I think people will eventually go, I don't actually want.
Very important that you don't lose this, okay? This is your inheritance through Bitcoin.
Let Bitcoin rip. Don't rip up your Bitcoin. Set up inheritance with Casa.
I think it's happening now.
Yeah.
This is why I wanted to talk to you, because it's super interesting, this PC Ghoul coming to see you. Let me tell you what's happening right now where I live in Bedford, because it's fascinating to hear something like this. So I live in a small town called Bedford. I don't know if you've ever been.
I know Bedford, yeah.
Okay, great. And very proud Bedfordian, love the place. We just opened a cafe in the town centre for our football club. We spent a good amount of money building it. And I knew we had some drunks. I knew we had some people with addiction issues, some crackheads in the town. I didn't realise the scale of the problem until we opened the cafe and I'm there every day and you suddenly see it. It's on your doorstep. You walk to work, you see people buying drugs. I mean, I can show you videos of gangs, like a group of zombified people there in the evening, which my son walked past. I can show you pictures of people smoking crack, smashed in car from the other day. I was in the cafe the other day. This guy comes in, tries to sell me something he's just stolen. He's all agitated. It's an epidemic in the town, and the town is falling apart. And so from that, I then go and speak to people. I say, "Are you coming into the town?" And blokes are fine. They're just maybe not coming because they say it's a shithole. Women are saying, "I'm not coming because it's dangerous. I'm not coming in with my kids. If I go into the car park, the multi-story car park, there are people selling drugs, buying drugs at high. I can't. If I walk through the town, I don't feel safe." My girlfriend said her son said to her the other night he didn't feel safe. He was scared, and so I don't like this. I don't recognise this. Well, I see it now, but it's not what I recognised growing up. So in my head, I'm like, this is fucking crazy. How have we allowed this to happen? And then I'm trying to find out why the police aren't dealing with it. And then I hear things like what you've said here, that, well, they're policing things people have said on Twitter. And so then I started going down the rabbit hole and seeing how much police are then spending on diversity, equity and inclusion. And look, I'm all for diversity, equity, inclusion, but not at the cost of having police on the beat dealing with crackheads, alcoholics, and the epidemic of people robbing shops and to feed their habit, and then open drug deal. We literally one street from our high street see open drug dealing. And so I'm thinking, well, this stuff used to be policed. Why isn't it? Where's the money being diverted to? And then you hear stories like yours. You go, well, I know, because they're splitting their funding now to police how people think.
No, that's right. Did you?
It's nonsense.
Did you see how much West Yorkshire are spending on diversity and inclusion officers?
Was that the one where the guy did the FOIA request, and it was about £1 million?
It's about 1.4 million.
1.4 million.
So something like that. Which I worked out.
This is the one, right?
Yeah, that's it. I mean, look at what the hell. What the hell is all that? What is a positive action progression officer? What is one?
Well, Harry, I've taken that and submitted the same Freedom of Information Act request to Bedfordshire Police because I want to know.
Yeah.
Not because, look, again, I've got no issue if they want, if there was a couple of staff working on this and the police was fully funded and that we were low crime and I wouldn't get my knickers in a twist over it. If I find out that in Bedford we don't have police on the street, police in open drug dealing and the plague of shoplifting, but they've got £1 million to spend on this, that to me is a massive problem.
They have. I've put in FOI request to every single force, asking exactly the same question. I can't remember what Bedfordshire's were. This is the good news is this is a particularly egregious and extreme version. Now, we put in a follow-up FOI to this and asked them how many arrests have these officers made in the last 3 years. Go on, guess how many? Guess how many? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I think there's about 17, 18 officers there. Yeah, how many arrests?
Do you know the problem with this? If it's a high number, it's scary, and if it's a low number, it's scary.
Go on, guess.
Because if it's a high...
Is it their job to arrest people?
Well, they're police officers.
Yeah.
They're police officers.
It's not their job to
it depends.
enact the DEI.
Okay,
it depends on the role. But what I was going to say is, it's scary if it's high because we're arresting people for thought crimes.
Yeah.
And it's scary if it's low because it's a complete waste of money. Every scenario is scary.
Yeah. Well,
I think it's low, though.
I'll put you out the number.
Yeah.
It's a big fat zero. Those police officers have not arrested, not one of those police officers has arrested a single person in the past year.
Do we know
not
what they're doing?
Yes, I know exactly what they're doing. They are the PC gulls of this world. They are going around knocking on people's doors, checking their thinking. I mean,
so it's basically the Gestapo.
It's basically it's like a kind of softer, gentle version of the Gestapo. They don't take you around the back and put a noose around your neck and shoot you in there. We're not at that stage. It's more Stasi, I would say,
right,
in that they use a form of deep coercion in order to make you comply. Now, I was called over to Merseyside, a house in Merseyside, about 9 months ago, last summer, just after the Southport riot, because a 19-year-old charity worker who lives with parents, lovely girl, she had a knock on the door from an officer from Merseyside Police, accompanied by a officer from Prevent, the anti-terrorist unit. They came into her house. They took her into her living room. They asked her what her religious views were, because the house had quite a number of Catholic imagery about. They asked her who she voted for. They asked her whether she was Conservative. They asked her they said, were you involved in the Southport riot? She said, no, absolutely not. Of course not. They said, well, do you have any sympathy with the cause of the Southport riot? And she said, well, I've no sympathy with the riot, but I have some sympathy with, the concerns of some of the people there. Her father had a replica samurai sword on the wall. They confiscated that straight away. And then they questioned her why there was what they described as a Anglo-Saxon helmet on the shelf, because they'd worked out that Anglo-Saxonism was a signifier of far-right extremism. She pointed out that it wasn't a Anglo-Saxon helmet; it was a replica Roman helmet. But this minor detail didn't sway them. They didn't tell her what she'd done. They didn't tell her what she was suspected of doing. They didn't tell her what ideology they felt that she was engaged in, which made her likely to, get involved with terrorism at some point. As they left the house, they just said, "In the future, bite your tongue." That was it. That was that. So that's what these officers are doing. And then we have the strange case of the 14-year-old young boy in, maybe it's 12, 14, I can't remember, in the northeast of England. He'd done a little TikTok video, and I won't say he's autistic, but he's clearly on the spectrum, quite obviously on the spectrum. And he'd done a little TikTok video where he'd said that he was gay, not queer. Where he said that as far as he was concerned, there are only two sexes, and trans and non-binary was rubbish. So that was video number one. Video number two was he'd been bought a wooden crossbow from English Heritage, which fires foam arrows. And he'd filmed himself firing foam arrows in his own back garden. This prompted the counter-terrorism police to turn up at his house alongside Northumbria police officers, because he was engaging clearly in extreme far-right views by expressing the view that there are only two sexes. And he was dangerously engaged with weaponry because he had a English Heritage crossbow and was firing foam arrows in his own back garden. That is the level of stupidity and nonsense that we're dealing with. Now, fortunately, on that occasion, I knew that they were coming to see this young boy, so I'd arranged with the parent to be there. And they were, I asked some very straightforward questions. My voice is quite, it's quite strong, like yours, it's quite a strong voice. But they instantly accused me of shouting. I wasn't shouting. I was just asking them why the hell they were there. And then I booted them out of the house and told them if they came anywhere near that household again, I would arrest them and drag them down to the police station for harassment. And they said, "You're not going to do that." I said, "You just fucking well watch me." And I fuck off. And that that was that. That got rid of them. But that's what these lunatics are doing. I discovered myself just last week, or the week before, that myself and Maya Forstatter are the subject of SO15 interest. SO15 is the Met's anti-terrorist department.
Well, you are planning a genocide.
Not planning a genocide, not anymore. No, not since PC Gaull. I mean, he literally stopped Hitler. He caught Hitler in his tracks and prevented it. How about that then?
Why are you on this list? Or this?
Because we're seen as right wing.
I am right wing.
Well, I'm right. I'm right wing as
It's
well.
not pejorative.
Well, I would exactly, but it's become a pejorative. What is the left wing? What are the left wing pejoratives?
Connor, can you look up what right wing means? Because I think I'm right wing, and I'm okay with that. If somebody said, "Well, what does that mean?" I said, "Well, I'm conservative. I have conservative values. I want a small government, low taxation. I want a good environment for business to operate. I want the family unit to be together. But I'm liberal in terms of I don't give a fuck if you're gay. I don't give a fuck if you're trans."
That's it. That's exactly it.
Right
With French aristocracy.
Here we go. The section of a political party or system that advocates free enterprise and private ownership and typically favours socially traditional ideas, the conservative group or section, a candidate from the right wing party, the right. Yeah. So that's right. I am right wing.
I'm right wing as well. I'm conservative, 100%. But where are the pejorative terms for the left wing? Where are they? What is the fear that is created when you talk about the alt left?
Well,
is there an alt left?
It is coming now. I mean, woke. Woke has become a pejorative. I think if you're woke, it's embarrassing.
Okay, but it's only become a pejorative to the likes of you and I. People still claim to be woke, and they say it with great, enormous pride. There's no left wing bogeyman. We don't talk about the existential threat from the alt left. I've got one of my very good old school friends. I'm from Sheffield.
Yeah.
So the People's Republic of South Yorkshire.
Oh, owl. So
I'm an owl. I'm an owl. And I was just a couple of years ago. I just went on Facebook and just asked my old schoolmates. How many of you have modified your views since you were at school? And most people had, but one mate, my mate Chris Hogg, a lovely guy, through and through socialist. He said he hadn't. He'd got harder. He now classed himself as hard left, and that's absolutely fine. But if I'd said I am hard right, that's it. You SO15 will be on to you. You'll be a knock on the door, because being hard left is seen as at worst naive. Being hard right is seen as very, very dangerous.
Dangerous, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And there is this willful blindness about the atrocities of the left. There is a disassociation about the atrocities of the left and the label of far left, which is not the case if you're even mildly right. Because if you're mildly right, then you are literal Hitler. If you are hard left, then Mao and Stalin just got it wrong.
Yeah,
there is no equivalency. It doesn't matter. You can talk about the numbers, the numbers of people who were killed by the far left versus the number of people that were killed by Hitler, and they go, "Oh, you're just a Hitler apologist." No, I'm not. What I'm trying to do is drag you back to reality and say that the thing which you espouse, that thing called socialism, extreme form of socialism, hard leftism, which has been tried many, many times, and on each occasion it ends in the mass slaughter of individuals.
You're going to love this. Connor, go to my Instagram and my last post. You're going to love this. Right? You're going to love this. You're going to really appreciate what I posted today. Yeah, but I think it's changing, Harry. I do.
Well, I hope so.
I tell you why I think it's changing, because I've still got friends who are on the left.
Yeah.
But they would agree with most of this conversation.
Yeah.
And they're distancing themselves from the left. And what I notice now with reform, it is they're attracting mainly disenfranchised conservative voters, but also disenfranchised left, like traditional Labour voters are coming over to reform, because I think so many people have got, like, if you're a mother or a father with a daughter and you're worried about the issues you spoke about, where do you turn?
Yeah, exactly.
You can't turn maybe the Conservative are starting to show a backbone.
Kemi's pretty good on it.
She's getting good.
But let's not forget this whole nonsense where the police were enforcing trans ideology. This all happened not only under a Conservative government's watch, but under Theresa May's watch as Home Secretary. She was the one that invited this in and encouraged it. Tories. There's nothing remotely Tory about the Tories between Cameron and Boris Johnson at all. What we've had, and this is why I think, when you look at very, very successful British politicians, Tony Blair, I think has got to be the most successful British politician that we've had since Churchill. Why? Because one of the fundamentals of change management is that the change continues once you, the change agent, have left the scene. And that's what's happened. He came in 1997 did a whole bunch of very quick changes.
not that one.
And when he left, Blairism continued.
Oh, it's not up there. I thought I posted it to... Oh, shit. I bet I've posted it to the wrong account now.
There we go.
God, what have I posted it to? Maybe I got Thought Police for it.
You're probably shut down.
Oh, no. So I'll show you on my phone.
Yeah, okay.
It's the thing I showed you earlier, Connor. I think I showed... Or did I show it to my girlfriend? Here you go. I thought I posted that.
Okay. Everyone else did it the wrong way.
Yeah,
that's right. Yeah,
just for people listening, there's a guy about to stick a fork in a giant plug called The Economy, and the first guy's saying, everyone else who tried this has gotten hurt. He said, everyone else did it the wrong way. And the fork says socialism. Yeah, I mean, Rachel Reeves is learning very quickly. Socialism doesn't work. Despite all the advice she's had for the last few months, she's gone down this more socialist route and blown up our economy, and now she's having to take money from the people that they traditionally want to help. It's a weird place to be in.
I would say the reality is conservative, and the second that you're given the keys to actual power, you have to become more conservative if you want to last more than a few days. Now, you don't want to do oh my God,
Liz?
Yeah, Liz Trusted. And
look up there. She's been in that seat.
Has she?
Yeah, we had a good chat with her. Actually, I've gone down the rabbit hole. I think she knew exactly what the problem was. She wasn't allowed to solve it because
I agree.
Yeah.
The Borg got in the way because
Totally.
that budget, which basically sank her. I know a lot of the people that helped her write that. It was a sound, good budget, but there was the willpower wasn't there, and there was a lot of willpower against it. So she didn't, poor woman didn't stand a chance. Now, she's been an ally for a long, long time. She kicks reform of the GRA, the Gender Recognition Act, into the long grass. She's been a staunch ally in many, many respects, and it's a shame because she was a true conservative, but the Conservative Party at that point wasn't ready for a proper conservative.
I think she would have been a great prime minister. I really do. I've read her book. I've met her. I've interviewed her, and I think she knows what all the problems are. And I think she wanted to solve it, and the establishment didn't want her to solve it. I did want to ask you, Enoch Burke, can you draw straight lines to from what's happened to you? The guy in Ireland, the teacher.
No, I can't really. So
Enoch, he's the teacher who he's a deeply religious.
Yeah, he's the Christian guy, isn't he?
Yeah.
He's just been acquitted, hasn't he?
So, he went to prison.
Yeah.
They've drained his bank account. We read, didn't they, Connor, of his to pay his contempt. So it was a really interesting one. We talked about this. He said he refused to use the pronouns.
That's right. Yeah.
Because of his religious faith, which I respect. It wouldn't be something I do. I mean, I'd probably forget your pronouns, but if you ask me, I'll try my best. But the thing that was interesting in that one is it was an act of defiance for him. He kept going back to the school after being asked not to. And I was trying and wrestle with that. It was one of those ones where I can see why he's been convicted, because essentially, I think it was trespassing or whatever. But at the same time, I admire his act of defiance.
Absolutely, yeah. I know the case very well. I just forgotten the name, in all honesty. Yeah, because I think there are certain things worth being criminalized for. I think there are things that are worth going to prison for, and I think that at times you have almost a moral obligation to break the law. Now, the thing that you must be aware of is when you choose to break the law on a matter of principle, you've got to be prepared to take the consequence of that, because what we don't want to do is dismantle the law. We want to keep the law as near to sacred as a secular society will have. We
just want sound law.
Yeah. We want sound law, and there are times when I think it is Lord Sumption, the former Supreme High Court judge. He said this, that occasionally there is a moral obligation to break the law, but corresponding with that is the moral obligation to take the consequence of that law breaking. And that's why I have some sympathy with Tommy Robinson. I think that when he when he showed the film, he was clearly in contempt of court. When the court has told you you cannot show something, then if you show it, you are breaking the law, and you have to be prepared to take the consequences, which I think it's fair that you spend a little bit of time in chokey for doing that. I don't have a problem with that when it comes to Tommy. I have a problem with the way that he's been treated in prison.
Well, I mean, it's interesting. He called the film Silenced, and they've truly silenced him now.
Yeah, I agree.
I was meant to go and visit him.
Oh, were you?
Yeah, and my application to go and visit was rejected because they said, we believe you'll be going for journalistic reasons. I wasn't. I wanted to meet him.
Yeah.
But even if I was, that should not be an issue. I don't.
It shouldn't be an issue. But this is what's happening. I'm friends with quite a few of Tommy's people. I'm friends with Tommy actually, and people are getting, visitors are getting cancelled the night before or the morning before. He's in a position now, I know, where he's eating very, very little. He's not eating food that's cooked in the canteen because the people who cook the food in the canteen are the same people who've sworn to kill him. So of course he's not eating the canteen. Mm-hmm. He's not eating the canteen food, which means that he's restricted to going to the tuck shop and buying tuck shop food. But I believe that's also now been restricted. He's been in isolation for God knows I don't know how many weeks it is now. But it's an inhumane way of mm-hmm. treating anybody, and without a shadow of a doubt, Tommy is, whilst he was in prison, I think justly, because he shouldn't have committed contempt of court. If you do, then you accept the consequence. But the way he's been treated in prison is entirely egregious. It's entirely
Have you watched
wrong.
The film?
I think I was part of the film.
Oh.
Actually, I know. I think the film that was shown. I saw an early edit of it, and I advised on some of it. It's very, very good. I've not seen the finished product, but I saw the rushes. I saw the early versions of it, and I was in a film that I think he showed in the month before's thing in Trafalgar Square. So I've done stuff with Tommy, and I think that a lot of what he says is absolutely right, and the stuff that was in that film about what had happened in West Yorkshire, that needs to be in the public domain, and it's entirely wrong, I think, that there should have ever been a court order preventing it being put in the domain. What ought to have happened is that the court should have said this and this and this need redacting because this and this and this. If you put that out, that would be unlawful, and there may be a very good reason for that. But a redacted, edited version of it, absolutely, you have a right to put that out. That I think is what should have happened.
I think the ideal scenario is the film would have been made, but not by Tommy Robertson, and for two reasons. Firstly, so he's not in contempt.
Yeah.
But secondly, and this is why I wanted to meet him, because the questions I have relate to, he has an incentive to. I've made documentaries, and a documentary maker can shape the film exactly how they want. They can tell the story they want. And this isn't to say, anyone listening, I'm not saying Tommy's a liar. All I'm saying is every filmmaker has a bias.
Yeah.
You go and show what you see, or you go and show what you've looked for. And my questions relate to, you were looking to tell the story that proves that you were right in saying what you said. But a more independent filmmaker who could have gone a bit more objectively and try and see from Tommy's perspective, see from the other's perspective, and give us the whole picture, I think would have been better. Because unfortunately, because of the polarization of society, people will watch that film and take everything. Well, it must be true because it's out there, and it's my team. I'm the the red team. It's my team, or the blue team. But actually, what we need is an independent filmmaker with no bias to go and make that film and go and tell the full story. Because he was held in contempt. He might have been wrong, and we don't know until an independent filmmaker or independent journalist at least goes and tells another story. And that was my main issue. I just wanted some independence around it, because I watched it and I was like, I can't just believe this just because Tommy said it. I need to hear the other side. So on this podcast, you are definitely hearing me talk about Bitcoin a lot. Well, why? We live in a really strange time with governments driving inflation with their reckless spending and endless money printing. There is a way out of this. There is a way to protect your money, and that is by stacking Bitcoin. I've made loads of shows about Bitcoin. You can go and research this. You can go and read the books. But the truth is, it is the hardest money ever created. If you are interested in protecting your financial future, it's time for you to get on the Bitcoin train. I've been stacking Bitcoin personally and through my businesses since 2017. It's protected me, it's secured my family's future, and it also strengthens all of my businesses. So if you want to start stacking Bitcoin, where do you do it? Well, for me, it's with Gemini. They're a fully licensed, full reserve exchange and custodian, so they give you a secure way for you to buy and own your Bitcoin. There's no risks and no funny business. So if you're serious about stacking Bitcoin the right way, head over to Gemini.com, which is GEMINI.com.
Yeah, I agree with all that, and that was when I saw the rushes of it. It was very long. I mean, it was like I watched, I think, 2.5 hours. And I rang him and I said, "It's too long, Tommy. This needs a serious edit because there's far too much of him in the car traveling between A and B, ranting, and all the rest of it. Like, no, all you're doing here is preaching to the choir. And what you want to do is, as you say, make a more nuanced, much shorter, more nuanced film, and that way you're going to win. You're going to convert people into thinking. You're going to win over hearts and minds. That's what you really want to do. But I can't criticize the guy too much because at least he's out there doing it. He's been doing it for quite some time, and he's paid and continues to pay one hell of a price.
Well, another reason I want to meet him, I kind of owe him an apology,
right?
In that I judged Tommy Robinson based on things I read and people had told me.
Yeah.
And some might be true.
Yeah.
He might have had some thuggish incidents in the past, but then if I look back on my past, I mean, maybe I have too.
So what?
Yeah. But I took a public perception and I was like, oh, I just discarded him as a racist idiot. And actually, the more I've looked into it, the more I've become suspicious about the picture I've been given of him. But even so, I think he's even changed himself, and changing yourself is good. What I hope is someone like you, who's a mate of his, when he comes out, is that someone gets across to him, you're no use locked in a cage.
No.
You can't affect change locked in a cage. You have a job to do. You have certainly a working class, but even middle and upper class people now look to Tommy as somebody who's speaking sense about issues that matter to them. And I probably wouldn't agree with him on everything, but it's almost like in some ways like a martyr who's gone to prison, and he's missing the opportunity to actually affect change. And so I hope, because he knows the line, and I hope when he comes out, maybe he butts up against it, but he doesn't cross it again, because another long sentence like this could really.
The problem, I mean, we talk about Tommy. We also talk about we should talk about the same breath as Lawrence Fox. So I worked with Lawrence for a long time. I was the chairman of the Reclaim Party.
Okay.
And a lot of what we did was very, very good. The problem with Lawrence is that even when his message is right, and he's got some very good messaging, actually, he falls into this trap of doing something ridiculous that just serves no real purpose at all. All it's going to do is get people's backs up and get you into trouble. I mean, why would you risk your career, a very good career with GB News, by saying, I wouldn't shag that? I mean, why would you do that? It's just stupid. Why would you make yourself look an idiot by, as much as I loathe the LGBTQI+ message, I ain't going to burn its flag in my back garden, being coaxed by Calvin Bloody Robinson to do so. I'm not going to do that. And I'm not going to publish somebody else's upskirt thing, because hopefully I know where this is going to end. Yeah. It's going to end. You're not going to progress anything.
Yeah, you're not going to.
You're not going to progress anything. Let's just say you have no resistance at all. None at all. What have you progressed by doing that? Nothing. All you've done, it's all risk and no reward by doing those things. And for me, when I do a stunt, like when I turned off the LGBTQ lights at Lincolnshire Police Headquarters a couple of years ago, I worked out what is the risk and what is the reward. When I handcuffed myself to the flagpole at Northumbria last month, risk and reward. When I intervened in the arrest of the former Royal Green Jacket, Daz Brady, for a Facebook post, I was arrested for it. But again, the risk and reward. I don't do anything recklessly, and I've no interest, absolutely no interest at all in publicity for the sake of it. None. I couldn't care less. I don't have a bank account that's related to what I do. I've not got a crowdfund up. If somebody gave me a load of money, I wouldn't know what to do with it. I'd have nowhere to put it other than my own bank account. I've no reason to self-publicize. But the problem with Tommy and with Lawrence is that they do. They it's almost like if they're not in the spotlight, then they get a little bit panicky
Agitated,
or what have you. I don't want to become yesterday's man. And so I don't know Tommy well enough to know that he literally goes out and thinks, what can I do to poke a bear? But Lawrence would definitely do that, which is a real shame.
I don't know Lawrence. I've never met him. And I just see him keep doing things which I wouldn't do.
He's badly advised.
Well, there's things or not, or maybe he's just, he had this amazing successful career as a successful actor, and he isn't now. He's been cancelled from that industry, and I don't know what that means for his life. My suspicion is he's angry, and there's frustration boiling out, and it looks like in a few of his posts he's pissed when he's doing some of these things, which I can understand, right? But I'm looking at the world thinking, we're in this weird place. I want to get us away from it. What can I do to contribute to have these conversations and things I can do in my life? But these really extreme acts, they're not going to bring people along. Like I want my kids to understand where my views come from, and hopefully they will share them and understand, I've taught them from very young why socialism is bad and why, where inflation's come, all these things. Once it starts becoming performative, you can cross a line where you lose people. And I've got friends who I think have got crazy ideas, crazy political ideas, some woke ideas. I want to be able to do things that articulate why they should rethink that, come along and join us.
Yeah.
And I think once you go performative, you just become like a boogeyman. So I think someone like Lawrence, there's a crowd on Twitter. Every time he does it, like, retweet, yeah, I agree. And there's a bunch of people think, oh, what the fuck's he doing again now? And I think that performative bit is just, it ruins the message.
Yeah, I mean, when I was chairman, I wouldn't have allowed any of that to go on because I just no, we ain't doing that. We're not doing it. We're simply not doing it.
Yeah.
And what I will say about Lawrence is, I think that the way he's been treated by the police is absolutely, utterly appalling. They're going after him because he's right-wing Lawrence Fox, not because that he's done anything remotely criminal. And if it was criminal what he's done, then what about all the other people that did it before him? It's clear to me that the Met Police are picking on him because of who he is. They've got it in for him, and that is entirely wrong. That is not to say that what he did wasn't smart. I think it was bloody stupid. I don't think it was honourable. I don't think it was necessary, but it wasn't criminal. Absolutely, it was not. It was not criminal. And I got hold of him this morning and just said, look, if you want any help on this, I am there because it's not a crime to be stupid.
You're right, because sometimes even though I don't know him, I've got no reason to really care. Sometimes I just think, is he all right? Because I think he's been through a lot.
He has been through a lot, and he makes life more difficult than it should be. And like I say, when you do stunts and say things and post things which, even without any resistance, would not have a discernible positive impact end. Why do it? All that's likely to happen is that you're gonna get into bother over this. It's going to cause you some pain. It's going to cause the wrong kind of press. And I get it. Sometimes it's addictive. Sometimes it's just reckless. And I don't like reckless behavior, and particularly if you're the leader of a political party or you want to be a political influencer, then I think that all of us make mistakes. All of us occasionally get hot-headed and do the daft thing. That all of us.
Yeah.
But when it becomes expected and habitual, and people roll their eyes and go, "God, not again,"
Yeah.
then you've got a problem, I think, and that's why really Loz needs to just get proper hard-nosed people around him again. I was absolutely like that with him. I've always called a spade, and I was never ever impressed by fame or money or anything. Yeah, I was not at all. So when you're like that, you can tell somebody the truth. I don't have a problem telling the truth at all. If I think you're being a tit, I'll tell you that you're being a tit and stop it immediately.
But this is the same challenge that Reform are facing.
Yeah, I agree.
We've all seen the polls. We've all seen directionally where they're going. We know they're a threat to the establishment as such, and there is a huge interest in the Reform message because people are so sick of being let down economically and the woke agenda that's come out of both the Conservative and the Labour Party. But they themselves are, having to walk this fine line where people are testing them and jabbing them, testing what Nigel thinks on this, on that. And they're really trying to form a party that can lead the country because they might win a general election. And, I don't underestimate the challenge that Nigel faces with that, but it's not going to be easy.
No, I don't think it's going to be easy at all. I mean, I'm very ambivalent towards that crowd. One, because I like Ben Habib very, very much. I know Ben. I think he's one of the smartest people I've ever met in my life. His ability to listen to a budget speech and dissect it within minutes without notes and explain what it means and what was in it is quite incredible. I think he's a genius of a guy. And I do not like the sucking up to Trump that there seems to be with Nigel. I just don't like it. I don't like it. I mean, out of Trump and Biden, I was definitely Team Trump, but I ain't a fan. Not at all. Not a fan at all. I don't like the way that Trump dismisses Europe. I don't like the way that he rattles his saber at towards Greenland and Canada and talk of the 51st state and all that kind of. I don't like any of that. But when the choice is Trump or a senile old liar who's having his strings pulled by probably Barack Obama, we don't know, do we? Because it certainly wasn't him doing it, and he's signing executive orders with his automatic bloody magic pen. Then it's not really surprising that the great American public voted for Trump because he's got his faults, but at least his faults are out in the open. We can see his faults because he doesn't hide them. With Biden, it was all hidden and undercover. So I entirely get why America went red, even Trump's version of red. Personally, I'm not a fan and I don't like it.
So what now, Harry?
Oh my God, what now? I don't know.
Like how do you think about us reversing the madness and getting back to a place where politics is really discussing economic ideas, security ideas, running the country, operating a prosperous economy? How do we get back to that world where?
Right. Okay. Well, I think let's just have a little look at some of the great things that we have managed to do. The Maya Forstadter's case, which made the gender critical belief, say a man is a man and a woman is a woman, a protected belief. That is absolutely huge, and that is having profound effects every single week in this country. Without blowing my own trumpet, my ruling has given people the ability to say, you can stick that non-crime hate incident up your arse because of the Miller ruling, and if you don't, we're going to go to court, and they back down because they have no choice. They know that they know that they're wrong. We've had great strides forward with the CAS review about the transitioning of children, the medical interventions on children. So that's happening. Graham Linehan, my mate Graham Linehan, he's moved over. It's our loss, but he's moved over to Arizona, I think, to set up a film studio with Andrew Doyle, I believe it is. So I think we're going to be getting some better stuff, some more proper, funny comedies that aren't woke out. So I think there's an awful lot of good things that are happening. I think there is definitely a pushback. Now, I'm an optimist because I think nature's going to win. Personal pronouns aren't going to win. reality is going to win. And this is a generational thing. And the next generation, the generation that's coming out behind the Gen Z or whatever they are, I think they're going to rebel against this as well.
They're already
rebelling against it. Yeah. I think having your pronouns in your bio is going to be like seen as the uncoolest thing that anybody could ever do.
Like having a Facebook account.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's going to die out.
Yeah.
I think it's going to. The question is, what's the damage in the meantime? Because we win. There's no doubt about it. We win without any shadow of doubt. We win. The question is, we want to mitigate the losses in the meantime. And I when I got into this, I didn't know whether I was going to be into a 1-year war, a 5-year war, or whether I'm just doing my bit in a 100-year war. I don't know. What I do know is that we win.
I think when you win like that, that's a poignant place to finish this. Listen, look, I agree with you though. That's why we do this. That's why we talk to people like yourself. And I think if we have a lot more rational people using nuance and good arguments, then hopefully we can get beyond this phase. I think my biggest fear with it all, Harry, is if we lose, we actually lose in the economy. I think this is what they're hiding, is the serious economic damage they're doing to this country. Very serious economic damage, how they're impoverishing people. And that's my worry, is that if we're arguing about this, we aren't focusing on the economy. And to me, is that the sound base of a country is on the economy. But, I mean, all credit to you for going to war. And have a little chat with your wife afterwards and talk about what that was like, because I know sometimes my girlfriend, she looks at me and she's saying, Pete, why are you doing this still?
Yeah.
Great to meet you, man. Thank you for coming on.
I've enjoyed it, mate. Thank you. Thank you
take
very much
care.
for having me.
And thank you, everyone, for listening.